my son is autistic, and he's at a school where they're helping him, and he started there a couple months ago. We love it there. He's been doing great. But we got our first bill, and for a month and a half, $13,000.
Best money spent.
And that's
no question.
Luckily, I don't have a salary, and I have the opportunity. I'm on CAT, so I can just work harder. But then by working harder, I'm not with them as much, and it's like, I want to be there, but in order for me to provide the way I want to provide for you, I also can't be there at the same time.
Isn't that a great dilemma?
I don't know.
Think about those that they just work and they don't get to be with their children, and then think of those that go be with their children, but they don't provide because they're not driven. You have to have both sides. There's a balance.
You see somebody and they have like a good story, and they're like almost to tears, and everybody stands up because they love it, or they're shocked by the way they look, that they sing so well, and I get emotional, and it makes me feel good.
So did you really sing at your reception?
Yeah,
you did. But you were singing over, right?
We were in Dominican Republic. They didn't really have the best
karaoke
set up there.
Okay.
And I couldn't memorize the song.
All right. Okay.
And I don't even think I came up with the idea until that day. Yeah. So I was like trying to practice and memorize it. It wasn't like a song that I sing normally. Right. And so I was like, well, the only option, they didn't have a karaoke set up, so it was like the DJ. So I'm like, just play it with Frank singing, and I'll just sing over him. And
those summer wind.
I don't even remember what I say. Not my way.
You don't remember what you said?
I don't remember what you do. It's just one of the famous Frank Sinatra songs. I don't know, the Way You Look Tonight.
Yeah.
And Kaisia was there too, but I didn't want him to sing because he's a really good singer. But I did it okay. She posted the video, the long version, which shows me start to forget the words, and I bust out my phone to look at it, and it just got awkward and weird. And
they had phones then?
They did have phones.
Let's go back to so do you do this regularly? You stay up till
down the rabbit hole,
the wee morning watching
I don't
reality television singing auditions.
Yes.
For the stories, not even the singing.
No, I love the singing as well. If they're good, I really enjoy it, and I like singing too. So like, it was always like a dream to go do that. And my in-laws are always telling me, "Oh, you would have been so great," and I'm not that good enough to do that, but I enjoy it, and it just, I don't know. Like I truly last night was thinking, my son, I'm not saying he's a good singer, but he likes to make noises that could be considered singing. And I'm like, it would be so cool if he was a good singer.
Went down that path.
Yeah. And your son's a musician, lover boy, right?
Not a singer, but he is.
He's a musician. What is he? What's his?
He plays the drums, but he's really got
a producer.
He produces. He's got a podcast.
Nice.
Well, let's stop talking about him.
Please don't send this to him, okay? Please.
He can pick up any instrument.
Really?
It's so cool.
That is
and
one of the
like
coolest.
by ear just knows what to do with it.
Yeah.
Is that something
Amazing.
that, like, did you guys play music in the house?
My brother is a drummer.
Okay.
Was a drummer. My father was very musically inclined. Rachel's mother played the guitar, and somehow by osmosis, he became very musically inclined.
That's really cool.
Was he like in band in high school and stuff?
Nope.
No?
He was way beyond that and bored.
Really?
But at 2 years old, he was making sounds on pots and pans that you would thought was music.
He's more of an iconoclast. Band is too structured. You gotta, to be a rocker.
He can't be contained in the
Yeah.
Right.
Come on.
That's,
So-
that's why I quit choir in 7th grade.
Really?
Yeah.
See, my family still makes fun of me because I did choir all the way through 12th grade.
No.
And I went-
I would have made fun of you too.
We went to New York, we went to Washington, and like
Pitch Perfect, kind of like.
no, not a cappella. But we sang at like Kennedy Center.
What?
I mean, we did like big, we sang at big stuff. It was really cool.
Where did you go? You went to Liggett
I went to North.
North?
Yeah.
Really?
So speaking of which, I was telling you I had a story. So I was down at Ahee Jewelers this weekend with my older daughter, and
Thanks for the advertisement this month.
Hey, Alex, if you want to give us.
so I'm standing, I'm standing there
Great.
talking to Stefan, who, I mean, they're all the greatest people in the world.
Is Stefan one of the twins?
Stefan was one of those
Okay.
friends, Stefan and Andre. And Alex walks by and he goes, "Hey, how are you?" He goes, "Hey, man, really cool podcast." And I go, "What?" And my daughter looks at me. She goes, "Are you kidding me right now?" And I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Seriously, we can't go anywhere. Like now this is becoming a thing." And I didn't put two and two together. I'm like, so,
Dad, you're so embarrassed.
but I go, and I said, so I'm like, we were talking to Alex. I go, so I'm like, do you know those guys? Well, I forgot that obviously you went to school with Bianca. And then
I didn't go to school with Bianca.
I mean, that he went to school with
Yeah.
Bianca. And then I didn't put two and two together with your dad and that family.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh my God, it was the funniest thing. She was just beyond pissed at me. She's like, I mean, this is just
hilarious.
And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool. And then, I'm like, we'll probably get the podcast discount, something like that. But it was just really funny that kind of to hear somebody say it.
Detroit is, it's such a incestuous town. It's pretty amazing. Like, oh, Jeff, I think I know a guy, and we have our worlds we've never met before, an overlap board member that works for Jeff, and it's like, how does that?
It's wild.
It's a small town.
Don't diminish the star power of this podcast.
I'm sorry. You're taking this away from me right now.
And
I have very little, Peter. Very little. Like, this is one thing that I can hang my head on.
Yeah.
You have a full head of hair. You have a lot going for you.
That's about it. Okay. That and the podcast. That's it.
All right. Well, let's get started.
Oh, radio
Yeah.
voice.
Sorry, Dad's here. So we're back for another episode of Midlife, the podcast, a dad bod experience. I'm super excited. I'm sorry, a dad bod production.
I'm like, dude, we're
dad bod. It is also an experience.
It's an experience. I'm going to get weird.
It is an experience as well. I'm excited. My buddy's here, Jeff Levine. Jeff is really one of my favorite people, and probably not even for reasons that he would know. But he is president of a company, 360 Fire Flood, and amongst other things. But what I love about Jeff is before I had kids, and even now, I always think of Jeff when I think of like somebody who loves their kids so much, like more than I could ever imagine. I think like it makes me feel bad, like I don't love my kids enough when I talk to you and you talk about your kids, like they are your best friends, and it's like it's something I strive for. So having these conversations with these guys, I'm like, I gotta have Jeff on here because it's like I aspire to be a dad like you, and still be around and be so active in their lives. You're traveling and seeing them all the time. They always come home, and your wife too. She has the same kind of feeling, with them. I mean, we all love our kids, but like, there's just something when you see certain people with their kids in that relationship that's just so cool. So I'm super excited for you to be here, Jeff. And yeah, do you agree with what I'm saying?
Well, those are very kind words. I'm just in a different stage of life than you guys. So I have a different type of relationship. And the other thing is, my kids don't live local. So I get so excited to see them, get so excited to talk to them. You take it for granted when they're there every day. But it doesn't mean I'm a better parent. I love them more. It's just different.
So Jeff, did you see that sort of change as they got older? Because I'm seeing that with my kids now. Like my oldest daughter's 14 and my middle daughter's 12. And it's like the relationship has changed, right? It's more, I mean, obviously I'm still their parent, but it's become more of like a friendship now, right?
Absolutely.
You know, and you can have those conversations with them and not just, you know, silly little things, but you can hey, what's going on with school? Tell me about your friends. You know, it just sort of took on a different feel now that they get older. And is that kind of what you found as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So my oldest, Brad, lives in LA. He's been gone.
Great. Enough said. Great. Enough said.
Favorite child, obviously.
So anyway, let's talk about that.
So Brad lives in LA. He's in the music business. He's a performer, more so a producer and a podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he's 27. He's been gone since he first went to college and then left shortly after that to LA. So, you know, the time I get with him on the phone, and he and I talk 3-4 times a day.
Mm.
We FaceTime 2-3 times a day. And it's just, you know, they're not there every day for you to be around. So when you get that time, you just take advantage of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And listen, I see this with all my friends as their kids grow up and as especially those that move away. So I love every second of it. But yeah, as they get older, you know, listen, you're always their parent.
Right.
And you want what's best for them and you care about them and for them and you want them to be safe. But you create a whole different dialogue. And that dialogue creates different feelings and experiences. And I just got back from New York last night. I was with my 25-year-old. So it was in the venture capital world in New York. And I mean, he's a grown man in the real world, working in New York, living in New York, and thank God paying for himself. And, you know, just
Completely?
100%.
Wow.
100%.
For you.
So, and then I got a baby at a little guy, about 6'3", 210, 215.
He's like an Adonis, this guy.
That's right. At Michigan State, he's a senior, and even that relationship is different.
Yeah.
You know, you just evolve.
Yeah.
You just evolve.
That's what I found too. And it's been one of the coolest things for me, you know.
I love it.
No, when they were little kids, and because you've always been an entrepreneur or professional, and I know you work really hard. I mean, you already showed us up by telling us you got up at 3:30 this morning.
10 weeks on the road.
Yeah, not both.
But
Is that bladder again?
3 times.
but back then, when they were little, I know for myself, like, I'm kind of happy to leave the house and get a break because it is very chaos. I'm in the chaos stage. Like, I'm happy to leave that for a little while. You know, I want to help.
Edit this so Bianca doesn't hear it.
Yeah,
I was going to say, yeah, I think
like,
Bianca likes you to leave the house too.
She called me today saying, like,
When are you leaving?
she called me today. It's like she needs a break too. She wants a break. Luckily, we're going to London in a couple of days, and we get a break. And both of us are, we miss the kids when we're gone, but we're okay. We need
Hence the dropping the kids off the grandparents clip.
Oh yeah, you saw that. Yeah, yeah, which is totally true. Like I think we need that time away. One, it's good. We miss them, but we can recharge. Plus, we need our time.
Yeah.
And that we do not ever get at home. Even when they go to bed, she is so tired. I'm tired. And we don't have that like quality time together. And even when we go out on date night, we've talked in the past on the show about, having date nights, and the date nights just aren't enough because we half-ass those because we're so tired. We took care of the kids all day. We're still tired to go out on a date.
We just went out for anniversary a couple weeks ago or a month ago, and same thing. It was like we literally go out and we're home in like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And it's just not, like you said, it's not enough to keep it going. So I know how it works with you, and Bianca. Obviously, I know Bianca's home. Peter, for your wife, does your wife work outside of the house?
Part-time, yeah.
Okay, so how does that work for you guys? I'm curious, and Jeff, I want to know from you too, when your kids were younger. How does that work for you? Like if your daughter gets sick, how does that work if your wife has to leave, but you have something going on? I mean, is there a flexibility there for you?
Yeah, I tend to be the flexible one because my wife is, medical practitioner. So it's like either she's taking the day off, or she's working. So there's really no in between. Whereas I can kind of control my own schedule.
Okay.
So the first calls are, moms, our grandparents. Like, are you guys available? Which, as they have other grandkids and they're older, so that the likelihood of them being available is kind of few and far between. Fortunately, even with like a daycare kid, we haven't had to run into that too much. But typically I'd be the one that's rearranging my schedule.
Okay.
But she's, 2, maybe 3 days a week. So it doesn't come up that often, which is great. But yeah, it is like, you can see how inconvenient.
That juggling can be very, like when they're sick and they have to stay home. And so, Jeff, when you started your business, how old were your kids?
I mean, when I first started business, my kids were just being born.
Okay.
So,
it's a great time to start a business.
but I was able to be the flexible one as well.
Okay.
So, and my wife, she worked, she was a teacher, or she didn't work.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can't remember when and with which kid.
Right.
But it's stressful, and I will tell you, we are very liberal when it comes to that at work. We understand things are going to happen, and obviously, you guys are in business. There's something about building a culture in your business, and when you allow people that flexibility, you know what, they seem to rise to the occasion when they're there, but they don't just shirk their responsibilities because they leave. So, but it's tough.
Yeah, the interesting thing that I've seen, I don't know if you've noticed this, I've witnessed it with my friends' businesses, and in other companies that I've worked at, your customers, when you set that cultural tone of like family first, this is a priority, unless you truly are, life or death situation, it's like, I respect that. So you can actually see, if you do set that stone and you're public about it, your customers responding to it like, oh, you're human as well. Yeah. Like I have a buddy that has a business, large, real estate developer. And if you call him and you get his voicemail says, if it's after the hours of 6 p.m., I'm spending time with my family. I'll return all calls tomorrow morning. Uh-huh. It's like everyone knows if I'm calling them after hours, I might not get a call back. And I think, people just in today's world, it's very easy to always be busy. And if you just set that tone, it's like refreshing. Oh, you're also a human. Like you have a family.
Well, and I think like
boundaries,
said,
right?
Customers appreciate, but I think your employees obviously appreciate more than anybody. Definitely. That, they're not going to just let everything fall away. If they're home, they're going to work from home or, whatever they can do. And that's got to lead to more productivity for your employees.
Yeah, it does. It does. And they appreciate it.
And not to have to stress about, oh man, I got a sick kid. What am I going to do? It's, there is that flexibility there, which I think is pretty amazing.
In there.
Yeah.
Now, Logan, on the other hand,
has never
call me after 6:30.
Please
anytime. I need a break. You need to show me to go.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's all about expectations. We talked about before. Like, yeah, sometimes you have to train people by not responding even when you're available to respond. Like if I get a text message at 10 p.m., I might not respond, even though I'm looking at it
Intentionally, yeah.
intentionally, because I'm like, no, I don't want to set this kind of precedence. But then there's other times where we are talking at 10, 11, 12, and
Walking down the aisle for your wedding.
or right
Or
before I
whatever.
walk down the aisle. Yeah. But it's still my choice, because I could choose to set that precedent. I could choose to not pick up, or, set different types of expectations. But I think what you guys are doing probably helps with retention, which I feel like is the biggest problem in
100%.
most businesses right now.
100% it does.
Yeah.
It does. But by the way, I have to answer my phone every second of the day, no matter what time, because we're in the emergency response business.
Right.
So fortunately, I don't have children at home. I don't have to deal with that now. But even when my kids were home,
Yeah.
we answered the phone.
Yeah.
But I understood my livelihood is important, but my family is more important. So you balance, you figure it out.
So does every call come to you?
No. But I have people that still call me,
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen one of your employees and his attitude of, I have a client at a senior community down in Florida, or fill in the blank, the responsibility from a just personal relationship building, be there to answer questions, proactive outreach, which is what, in my experience, pretty uncommon in your industry, in that business. So I know you guys have built a strong culture that's taking care of the people, which is cool to see.
People like him, it's easy.
Yeah, that's great. What are you doing for the vacation policy?
We have our PTO time.
Yeah.
But we give days off here, days off there. There may be a week we worked 7 days a week, 50, 60 hours. We take these 2 days off.
Yeah.
Do what you have to do.
Yeah.
So, and as long as everybody gets their job done, quite frankly, it doesn't really matter.
I know.
Well, and I think, especially over the last couple years, but I think even more than that a little bit. I mean, I think everybody realizes, and I don't mean to generalize it, but I think there's a lot of jobs that can be done from home now, right? I mean, I think we found that out during COVID, that you don't have to sit in an office necessarily 40 hours a week to do everything. There are certain things, like for your business, that you can do. They can, do things at home. And I think that sort of changed the landscape quite a bit as well.
I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, remember when Mary Barra first came into GM and it was like, a dress code? Like, be an adult, dress appropriately. Like, we're not just giving you the freedom. If you have a good employee, like, do what you're supposed to do. I'm not here to micromanage or tell you what to do or what not to do. You're going to know pretty quickly if they're going to perform or not, regardless of putting structure in place. So, yeah, I mean, there's data that's been out that says those unlimited vacation policies, if you look at it, you're seeing less time typically taken from the employee, because like, I have the flexibility, they're treating me well, I want to treat the company well. So, I think it's been weaponized a little bit from companies.
Oh, I
but
think that's going to be anything.
Yeah, it's,
Depends on the industry too.
depends on the industry,
Right.
for sure.
But I think if you get the respect from your employer of, hey, we're going to trust you with this, I think it becomes, cyclical, right? You're going to say, okay, well, you're giving me that responsibility. I'm not going to abuse it. I'm going to take my time, but I'm also going to, be respectful of it.
Well, you hope people, you help the hands that feed you, not hurt the hands, right? And it's a two-way street.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Yeah, I think so. I've always, with anybody that's worked for me, I've always had kind of I'm not setting a certain amount of days off. You have a sick kid, stay home. You want to go on a vacation? Great. I want you to be able to enjoy your life. That's the whole point of this thing. And just don't abuse it. If it gets to a certain point where I feel like I'm being abused or I'm being walked over or taken advantage of, I'm going to say something. Simple as that. And I feel like they take less time when that happens, because they're more, because you're being good to them, they want to
That's what I mean.
reciprocate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, also it sounds like in the case of you two, leadership sets the tone, right? So if you see senior leadership working hard, not taking advantage of the situation, you feel like, well, it's kind of culturally, this is what I should be doing. So a lot of it comes down to how you manage your time and what your employees see you doing.
Well, I think for both of you guys, especially, you've been doing this a long time, but I still think, I mean, and I can't speak for you, Jeff, but I mean, for Logan, I don't think there's anything that you would ask somebody to do that you wouldn't do yourself or obviously haven't done yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that speaks volumes too of, hey, look, yeah, it might be, Sunday night, I don't want to go do this, but I'll go do a showing, or, I don't want to go meet with this guy or do this, but, you're going to, just because I think that sets a tone for your employees as well.
I think you're right. I will tell you that this generation's a little different.
Well, one, us or
Those guys, not me.
I think
Right after us. Right after us.
definitely younger people today they don't really know from 40, 50, 60-hour work weeks. They don't know from PTO. They don't understand, the business world, at least the way it used to be. And maybe this is just the new normal, and it is what it is. But there is definitely a dichotomy between the old-timer and the newbies, the young people today, because the expectations are so different, right? I always knew I'm getting up and I'm going to work no matter what, even if I have a sniffle. Today, you don't have to do that. Today, you can work from home sometimes, and we're seeing that change a little again. And they just, listen, you come from high school and you come from college, you weren't in the working world, right? Now you go into the working world and there's a change. So, and business since COVID has changed. So we'll see what happens.
I always tell everyone, like, we're this generation that we're referencing, it's a product of the participation medal generation, right? Like, there was such a dichotomy shift in our society of like, we're never going to pressure you. Anything you do is good. That then you compound it with social media and cell phones and plenty of narratives around like, you can do a lot of things and make money and find your purpose. And, if you don't like where you're at, just make a change. And it's just so dramatically different than what it used to be. Some of that is like the loyalty of, financial loyalty, pensions and employers providing that. It's like, well, that's not on the table, so why would I be loyal? But man, it almost went to an extreme, and it's really hard, I've found, with people on my team that are younger. It's like, how do you coach that and train that? 'Cause like, this is like, it's really tough. 'Cause that's their whole upbringing is like, all right,
Well, as the elder statesman here, you and I, we didn't get participation medals, right? We didn't get, everybody didn't get a trophy.
Yeah.
And I think that, like what you were saying, I think that's a huge thing. Like I know in my business, we have young people come in for sales and they expect to start out up at the top, right? Without any experience, without anything coming in, or they see somebody like me that's been doing it a while. Oh, you can, you take a lot of time here, you have flexibility and you make X amount. Well, yeah, but I've been doing it for 18 years. There's a big difference than doing it for 2 years. Right. And I think like the generation that you're referring to, Peter, that are probably going to hate you.
Yeah. Which is,
those are the, that's those guys. I mean, they expect to come in at the top of the pile and that's just not the way it works.
I'm generalizing. Obviously, it sounds like your kids, right? Because probably the environment they grew up in understand, it appears, like the quality of a work ethic and making it and trying to do their own thing. But
they had a good mother.
It isn't. It is an outlier. It feels like.
Same with Logan's.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you where I think the biggest issue is going to be, and I'm noticing this now, is the kids today lack coping skills because we have fixed everything for them. Every kid gets an A now in school. Everybody gets 4 points. I mean, I shouldn't say it. I knew some people that got 4.0s. They worked hard for it. They earned it. So if I complained to my mom that I got a C, she'd say, well, study harder. She wouldn't go yell at the teacher.
You don't email the teacher.
That's exactly right. So we unfortunately, my youngest just had a friend die in a car accident. And yeah, thank you. It's a tragedy. But we we didn't know how he was going to handle it because we fixed everything for him. So that's where I think, we need to spend some time with the young ones. We need to let them understand that, you're not going to get everything you want.
Mm-hmm.
So, by the way, I wasn't deprived of a lot either, but, it was just a different time.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like I, as a child, was definitely not deprived and definitely was spoiled and definitely took advantage of that. But at the exact same, but at the same time, I was able to, be in the front row watching a man, like in the truest sense of the word, looking back, just sitting there thinking about watching my dad in like the 80s and 90s felt like, now looking back, like it was the 50s, like Mad Men, but without all the drinking. Just a suit every day, no matter what. First one in the office, last one to leave. The hardest just working person I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there probably like the kids today, like just living off of his hard work.
Just fucking off.
Yeah, just messing around and thinking, well, he's going to take care of it, right? And then after he was gone, having a rude awakening of, oh shit, now I have to somehow figure this out, but nobody's taught this to me. And I feel like that's kind of what's going on right now is no matter what, because even the parents aren't that necessarily right now. They're not, like I don't wear a suit to work every day.
But that's the thing. What you were taught, though, is you saw your father go to work every day early and come back late.
Mm-hmm.
My father, the doctor, he didn't come to a ball game because he worked till 8, 9 o'clock at night. I had never missed a game. Never missed a game.
Yeah.
And I love it and I don't regret it, but we were always there for our kids.
Yep.
I've been very fortunate to be able to do that as well. I mean, it's, because those are the things like, your kids are older now, so they don't do that. And everybody always tells me, oh, when your girls are done doing this or that, you're going to regret it. And part of me is like, am I though? Like these long days sitting in a volleyball tournament. And then I think about it. I'm like, I am. I'm going to miss it at some point. So I try not to miss.
I miss it every day.
Yeah. I mean, generationally, right? So you had depression generation that I think their kids, why they understood from their parents, like, oh, there is an alternative. Like we could go back there. So you had this scarcity mentality and work your butt off and grind. And I think that like our parents' generation was like, I don't want that for my kids. So they gave too much. And I've noticed just in people that I've encountered, I've seen very different paths of success. And typically the drive that someone has in our generation that didn't come from privilege and came from a little tougher spot, I just see this exponentially elevated drive compared to a lot of, me, myself, others in my network. It's like, yeah, I know I'm probably going to be okay no matter what happens. I don't have the counterbalance to what would happen if I don't make it because there's a safety net. And that's just generational differences.
Expectations are different.
Well, I think also it's the time in it. So for myself, I did not have that drive until things got really bad.
Yeah.
Then I had the drive like crazy and worked my ass off. And then once things got good, it was like I quickly forgot how bad it could get. Like so quickly. Like I have an office that I pull up in my fancy car that I used to sleep in the alley behind there, and I forget about it. Like that, I should be reminded every single day, and I forget about it.
Right.
Like that's crazy. So put a whole generation gap of pain away, take that away of losing because everybody wins or whatever, and see the chaos that comes out of that is just crazy to me. But then I'm torn all the time. Like, trust me, I want to be there for every dance class, every sporting event, everything. And at the same time, and we've talked about this before, that I'm constantly torn between wanting to be there and knowing that the more I work, the better I'll be able to provide for them. And when people say, like, maybe it's okay, you can make a little bit less and be there, you're not going to regret it. But then when I'm in it, we just gotta, my son is autistic, and he's at a special, I don't even know what you call it, but like a school where they're helping him, and he started there a couple months ago, and we love it there. He's been doing great, but we got our first bill, and for a month and a half, $13,000, and I'm like, this is what I have to now take on for the foreseeable future.
Wow.
And best money spent.
And that's
No question.
I'm not going to pull him out, but now I have to. Luckily, I don't have a salary, and I have the opportunity. I'm uncapped, so I can just work harder. But then by working harder, I'm not with them as much, and it's like this constant battle of, I want to be there, but in order for me to provide the way I want to provide for you, I also can't be there at the same time.
But isn't that a great dilemma?
I don't know.
Think about those that they just work and they don't get to be with their children, and then think of those that go be with their children, but they don't provide because they're not driven.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have both sides. There's a balance.
But I think it goes back to what we talked about, a couple weeks ago. I think it's, when is enough, right? And is enough going to be enough?
Well, I was stressed before I got that bill, so it actually brings up like a kind of a scary thing that I was thinking about it. Maybe that's what started me down the rabbit hole of the singing. I needed some happiness.
Can you want some like competitions so you could make some
I
money
need to watch some good
pay for his own school?
Yeah, that.
See,
You win $1 million if you win America's Got Talent.
There you go.
You should go do that.
That's like 2 months of this school.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
But thinking about the stress that I put on myself and a lot of it's my own fault. I created a life with high expenses to begin with before I got a bill like that. But at the same time, whatever, it's my bed. I'm sleeping in it, but I'm constantly worried that this stress that I've put on myself is going to shorten my life a lot, or could potentially create, an issue way earlier than it should. And it scares the crap out of me. And I'm like, I don't know how to fix that though. Jeff, how do I fix that?
I think
this is why you're here, Jeff.
Like I said, I think the dilemma is you're handling it. If it wasn't a dilemma, you wouldn't care. You wouldn't have the passion for taking care of your family, and you wouldn't have the passion and love for being with your kids. And you figure it out. It's like when, I remember asking, talk to my mom, I don't think we can afford to have kids yet. She says, you can never afford to have kids.
Ever.
You just do it. Well, you just do what you do. And, you've been pretty darn successful at both business and being a parent.
I think that's
a few years in.
I don't know about a husband, but
yeah.
It is what you just, I think there's a certain type of person that, to your point,
Why'd you look at me?
you're always just
You're
going
a
to
type
be,
of person.
we're all probably sitting at this table wired a certain way that you're always going to deal with the stress, feel like you can do more, you should be more. And that, yes, it does. I think you carry weight with that, but it's also just a blessing. Like, I see some people that are, just kind of coasting, and I'm like, really? Like, what? At the end, right? What was it all about? Right. And then, like, you just kind of floated. I don't know. Like, I think that's just inherently probably in you. I don't know if that's ever going to go away. I know I can speak for myself. That probably won't ever go away, because you just feel like I should probably do some more and push a little bit harder and reach out to that person and keep going. And that's kind of what makes you driven.
That's right.
So
Well, I think.
Good luck.
Thanks.
You're not getting rid of that one. But it's those moments, I think those moments that you experience 95% of the time is the grind, and then 5% you have those little moments because you're grinding that's like celebrate that.
Well, it is funny because I always tell people that are new in my business to, like, you have to find a drive. And sometimes it's not, just, I want to have a great life. Sometimes it's pain or the fear of pain that drives people. Like for myself, I kind of needed a almost like an expensive thing that I wanted to do or buy, like get married, go to AE and get the engagement ring.
Plug, thanks, guys.
I remember having a sales manager that was always
I needed a tennis bracelet. Alex,
buy that. You should probably go get that. You should definitely. Yeah, you need a new suit. Yeah, like constantly trying to put you in debt.
That's what my boss
you're motivated.
That's what my boss always said. Was I want you guys to go buy that new car, that new house, because I know you have to pay for it, and I know you need to get the money for it, so you're going to work harder.
Yeah,
I'm like,
when you can get by on very little, it's hard to motivate. I've had people work on my team that they can skate by with very little, needing very little income, and they don't have any motivation. But as soon as, I know for me, seeing that bill was like,
that's a big bill.
Oh my God.
It's right there.
Well, to know that it's coming again next month too. But getting that is like, okay, I don't have more hours in the day, but I need to work on being more efficient, right? Like, because I'm probably not going to start waking up at 3:30 with Jeff, but maybe I'll have to, or maybe I just need to be productive with the hours I do have.
All right, so here's a question. Did you know going in that you were going to be getting bills like this, or was this a total shock?
It was a shock to me and Bianca, which I'm not 100% sure if anybody ever warned her.
Okay.
But definitely didn't warn me of that. I would remember that. But there were a lot of variable stuff. There was a lot of variable things in there, like every time they had mandatory parent meetings with the people that work there. And we didn't realize that those were charged, but they were also different prices for each time. I mean, we had a whole rundown of everything. And so Bianca called and said, one, I didn't realize that we were charged for these mandatory meetings, but why are they all different? And they said, well, it's for the time you spent, like a lawyer, and the billable hours. And so I'm like, okay, next time you go, you don't talk. And
we're just here to listen today.
Keep, wrap this up. Like, we can keep moving, and maybe that'll save us a little bit of money. But like, yeah, it was just a big question. And like you said, Jeff, not a chance I'm pulling him out while it still works, while we're still feeling like he's getting something out of it. But then at the same time, we ran into some people, or my wife ran into some people at an event last week who brought up this stem cell therapy in Panama that they went to, and it was like a miracle. I haven't told you guys about this. These people they did with their own research, talked to a bunch of people, but the husband said, I went down there assuming that I'm throwing away this money, and it wasn't cheap. And he said, but my wife really wanted to give it a try, and we'll do anything to see if it could help. And they did it. This child, who was about a year older than Logan, but I guess was not speaking or anything prior. And a few weeks after they got back from Panama, he went up to his mom and just started talking. Like, said, hey, Mom, can we go to the store now? And he hadn't even spoken before then. And she just like fell to the floor. Didn't even respond to him. Didn't know how to respond. Was in such shock. And so now, Bianca hears that story. And now it's like, now apparently we're going to pay. No, I mean, I still want a lot more research, but even the husband said, he's like, even if you went after knowing what happened to us, you still, if you do it, need to go into it knowing that it doesn't work for everybody, and you might just be throwing away this money. But my whole thing, it's not like a surgery. It's not some invasive thing, but it is, it's something. I'm going to another country with my child. There are needles involved, and who knows what's in the needles and stuff like that. And part of me thinks, what if, does that say he's not enough already? And is that saying, and then if something happens to him, we did that. It wasn't like, he was sick, went to the hospital, and something bad happened. This is no, I'm choosing to go. And I don't know. It's grappling with that. But yeah, there's just the things that we do for our kids,
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's the new fun I've been dealing with.
Damn.
But they're so cute.
Well, I think you always
They'll
want
do anything for them.
but I think you always want more for your kids, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
more than you had, obviously,
parent, yeah.
right? But I mean, just more, and I don't mean, like you said, does it mean he's not enough? No, not at all. You may want more for him, right? You want him to experience all the things that Frankie may, right? Or that you did, or your friends' kids did. I mean, I think it's a very tough decision, no question, but I just think you always want more for your kids than they ever would know.
You got to do more research, though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I have a friend I'm going to introduce you to in California, Southern California. They did it.
Yeah.
And got great results.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of wanting more for your kids, so your kids, Jeff, are completely different in what they chose to do for a living. How did
It's unbelievable.
did you just instill in them from an early age, we don't care, we just want you to be happy kind of thing? Or did you try to guide them one way and then they just said, nope, I'm going this way? Was your son the one to go into music? Was that scary? Or were you always the parent that said, you know what, follow your passion? And I don't know if I could totally be that guy that says follow your
I always said I wanted my boys to go to school, to college. Because I thought that's what you had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So my oldest, who's in the music business in LA, he went to Columbia and Chicago for 2 years and then got into this producing program in LA called Icon Collective. And I think it's Steve Aoki, Kelvin Harris, a group of, these guys put the school together. If not, they have something to do with it.
Taught kids how to throw cakes and
Glow sticks.
Yeah, exactly. And because he was a pretty successful electronic music DJ.
Cool.
At a young age. He won some big contests and did some shows around the country.
Your son?
Yeah.
Hello.
So, but I also wanted him to experience college because I'm of the opinion most 18-year-olds aren't ready to go in the real world. And at college, if you learn two or three things, you won the game. But you grow up and you learn how to meet with people, meet people, assimilate with people, and live on your own. So, but I always wanted him to go to school. And I felt like he got that time. And then he was always meant to be in the music industry. Went to LA and kind of found his path. And it's been a struggle. My son, Max, he was the one who busted his butt every day. You'd have to tell him at 1 o'clock in the morning, shut the light off, stop studying, went to school. He's in the venture capital world. Eli probably studies the least, and he's by far the brightest. And who knows what he's going to do. I think he wants to be a firefighter.
It's amazing.
So, and we've lived through so many experiences and we've seen so many things, all of us, that you get to the point where you just want them to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, money's important because there are situations, right? And there's experiences you want to experience and you want certain things in life, but you realize it's just not quite as important.
Yep.
Don't want them to struggle. But So back to your original question, had no idea what they wanted. Brad, I knew. Brad knew out of the gate. I could show you videos at 2 years old, pounding anywhere you go to, and you see him drumming, with his hands, listening to something. It was meant to be.
Yeah.
So, and couldn't be more proud of him. Couldn't be more proud of all of them, but they're completely different.
And he's hitting he's like kind of hitting his stride too, not just with music, but with the podcasting.
Yeah, he's getting there. He's getting there.
It's probably not as cool as this podcast, but I'm sure it's okay.
Nah, definitely not.
Yeah.
Let a bunch of old dudes sitting around.
Just some cool guys in LA, not some boring Midwest dads.
I think you guys need to go to LA and go be on his podcast, and vice versa.
We should do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. He'll be super excited.
I can't wait.
You would.
I'm sure
Some dad bods. Dad bods.
Yeah, Dad, these assholes you told me to come out. They came out here. Boy, was that awesome.
You've met Brad, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. He's way cooler than us.
So how do you do it? Business owner, growing, scaling a business, going to every game, 3 kids. Like, how did you balance that and prioritize stuff?
I haven't always been in this business.
Okay.
About just over 10 years in it. So I was in the banking and finance world, which you typically have office hours. Just figured it out.
Yeah.
Found a way.
Yeah.
Made it important. And when I had to be back at the office or I had to work later, I worked later. You just do what you have to do.
Yeah. I had my dad died young, but he was public figure and young death, but was known in the community. So thousands and thousands of people at funeral and visitation. And I remember thinking, like, how in the heck did you build what you built and build all these relationships? Because he was at home, dinner every single night, at every play and sporting event, at everything. I'm like, how did you do that? And I didn't get to ask him the question, but my perception and assumption is, like, when he did have a connection or a meeting or a phone call or whatever, he was super present. He went really deep. And so he was able to build really meaningful. He was just more efficient with his time, right?
But he had that personality.
He did.
Right?
Yeah.
He had that.
He was intentional with his time.
Right. But he wasn't just, one of those, business guys or executives that just, kind of hung out. Your dad was engaged, right? And he had that personality that, I don't want to say he took over the room, but he became a presence in that room no matter who he was with.
Yeah.
And I think that's how people like that build those relationships. I think like you said, I think he jumps in with both feet.
And for him, it was that he cared about the person he was having a conversation with. That's why he had the personality. That's why his dynamics, because you felt like you were important.
Yes.
And I think that's just like, it's a quality over quantity sort of thing.
And that's a special quality.
Yeah.
And that's not something I don't think you can teach that.
You can, I think.
I think, yeah.
Well, I think some people have it just innately.
Yeah.
But I think you can teach active listening, and just that simple practice alone can really help. Mm-hmm. To become someone like that, probably something that people strive for and might never hit. But I do think you can get better often at, like, and I think you just kind of need like an awakening by doing it, right? Like, somebody taught me one time, like, to, no matter what, even when you feel like the person talking is you guys should be doing this right now. Even if you think the person talking is boring.
It's almost in my mind. Jeff, come on. We got a little time.
If you look for something that you're going to get out of what they're saying, even if you've heard the same thing before, even if it's boring, even if you don't like what they're talking about or the way they're talking about it, if you look to get something out of it, you will. And that alone, that changed it. So I started like, and I'm not at all even close to perfect or even good at it, but when I'm reminded to do it, I do it, and I look for the good in what they're saying. And when I do that, I always, like, not necessarily mind blown, but I always like take a nugget from what that person's talking about. And I know for myself, I think if I practice that more, I would be just a happier person, but I think I would build those connections because I think people know when you're engaged and if you care enough. Like,
well, it's respect. I actually was still thinking of Peter's dad, just because I don't. I think you can. Yes, I think you can actively listen. Yeah, thanks for having us. But like your dad was, like he made everybody kind of feel like, they were there for that reason to be with him. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just he was listening. It was your dad was engaged with them. Your dad knew them, and I think that's something that you can't teach, that personality trait. I think you can teach somebody to listen and take a little bit from it, but I think somebody like your dad who, was in the different positions he was in, I think is very different than what we see now.
Well, you kind of, in his case, right? You run big companies and businesses, and your peers are also running businesses and have money and success and whatever else the world perceives to be success.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those discussions are very surface because it's like, I'm doing the dance and what are you expecting to see? And I think the approach that he took is, I'm going to be super vulnerable. Like, I'm broken. I got a kid that's messed up, or a kid dealing with this, and a marriage, and a this and a that. And like, I'm going to be really transparent and vulnerable. And immediately that breaks down the like, okay, let's stay surface into let's talk about real stuff. And he had an innate ability to do that, which, I think you can habitually practice that stuff, but it came very natural to him.
100%.
And it's just being a human. Like, let's just talk about what's actually going on in our lives.
Right.
Because we all have shit. Like, let's talk about the shit.
Yeah.
So connecting versus trying to, sell a deal or, move something forward. And it's like, I want to build a relationship. And I think, if I look back on that life and what it was like growing up, it's the relationship stuff. Like, yeah, we had privilege and there's a very comfortable lifestyle, but that wasn't even a factor. It was the moments, the experiences that he was around, and we built a family. That's what kids care about. And I think it's hard for us to think about it in the moment, but when you look back, it's like, was I there? And I think it's really hard to do both, but having balance. You're not going to do it all the time. Finding those moments where you're present.
I don't know how it was for you with your dad growing up, but like for my dad, I saw my dad I'm sure like you did in a certain way. Like, he was your father. He was just, I thought my dad was like the greatest thing, on earth. But it wasn't until he died that I heard from other people that they thought the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And to me, that was like, wow, like all these people, whether I knew him or not, was, I'd run into, oh yeah, I met your dad a couple times, and wow, man, he made me feel like this. And to me, that's great. Kind of one of the coolest things I'd ever thought about my dad, was that other people thought that too. So I think that is something is hugely, important, I think, too now.
Yeah.
Don't you want that? Like, in a way, like, like for yourself?
Yeah.
Like,
well, for people
like, wow, I don't want, like, I think about it in, I'm like feeling morbid all the time, but I'm not but like, I think about it all the time. Like, I don't want to be gone before I do that. I don't want to be like stuck at work all the time where I didn't get that chance to be just like the present dad or be so busy with my daily normal work that I'm not reaching out to like the people I care about to tell them I care about them enough. Not even just family, but like one of the reasons why I wanted Jeff on here was almost like kind of to tell you that like I look at you in such a positive light because he is one of those people that he cares. And I don't know if people necessarily know that I care, to be honest.
We don't.
Like,
We don't
have it.
And I feel like I'm really bad at showing it, even though I do. And because
You've told me twice in the last half hour, so I know.
well, now you
We
know.
get it. Thank you. You like Jeff. Okay.
Go take a break.
Can we be alone?
So it is interesting. I know you and your dad had a great relationship. You did. I did. Did you? What was it like with your dad?
So my dad is still around. He's
Okay.
87.
Ooh, rub it in.
That's awesome, man.
He's
Dad's club over here.
he's slowing up.
Yeah.
But I've heard amazing things from friends.
Yeah.
He's an amazing person, very quiet, till he got later in life. Then he started to get chatty and talk. But he worked his whole life. He was away to provide. He didn't know any better. You know, at 87, he came from a whole different generation. I mean, they got off the boat, right? So that mentality was work.
Did he really?
This country. No, he didn't.
Oh.
But you come to this country
Yeah.
and you work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he worked multiple jobs when he was going to college.
Yeah.
You know, I worked on my suntan. So he's a special guy. I'm really lucky.
You are for sure.
I'm going to go right from here to his house to give him a kiss.
Really?
There you go.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Lucky bastard.
Yeah.
See, my dad would have been
Jealous.
84 this year, so he was the same generation where he did. I mean, that's what you did.
That's right.
You worked and you provided. You didn't. There weren't any other options. You know.
And we are definitely, you know, the minority. It feels like. I mean, I know, like, even my dad's dad, they had a close relationship, and that to get that passed down, you know, and what I do every day for a living, see hundreds of kids that, like, there is no father figure. A lot of times that's what we're providing, you know, like Robert and others are providing that. It's like, ooh, like, I can't imagine what it'd be like not to have a dad that was around or said, I love you, or feel very fortunate to have had that.
And Robert lost his dad.
Right.
And his father was an amazing guy.
Yeah.
And that love, that connection. And by the way, you guys should be proud for the things you do because you learned it from your dad.
Yeah.
And your moms, I'm sure. But you guys, the good stuff just flows down. And you got a piece of it, all three of you. Because just based on this conversation, I can hear you're good people and you're doing the right thing. And if you weren't struggling, then I'd be worried about you. Right?
Well,
Every day.
you know, gonna struggle is real.
Every day it's a struggle.
Yeah. We're gonna cut this short so I can go have a little cry session. But
how about a hug and kiss?
yeah. Well, I
Hands,
would.
everybody.
Yeah.
They're probably sleeping.
Yeah, they will be sleeping.
At the table.
I did very gently.
But no, Jeff, I so appreciative that you came on, and I think you should give your dad a kiss from all of us.
Please.
And because he made a good one, or multiple, because you have siblings, and awesome grandkids, and you should be proud, and I'm proud of you, and I'm grateful to call you a friend, and really appreciative for you to come on here.
Thank
and
you, Jeff.
Thank you, fellas.
thanks for an emotional Midlife the podcast,
Good.
a dad bod cry session.
Dad,
That was the experience.
It was the experience.
That was the experience.
It's
Foreshadowing.
like the secret.
Foreshadowing.
I put it out in the world, and came back to us. Yeah.
I can't wait for our LA trip. We're gonna.
God, it's going to be amazing.
And his podcast is called This Is an Experiment.
Oh, is it?
It is.
I thought it was Lumber Boy.
That's his name.
Oh.
That's his stage name.
Okay, so next time I'm changing my name to.
But you have to get it tattooed across your chest.
Is that what he has?
Yeah.
Doesn't it kill?
Oh man,
Yeah.
if you had called me 10 years ago, I would have done it for like $5. and
Or a beer.
yeah.
Whatever. Whichever's cheaper. I don't know.
All right, cut this, Dean, now.